After years of dealing with these yellowish doors, I'm finally updating these flat hollow core doors with trim and paint. Now, before I can go and start adding this trim to these doors, I do have to remove the finish that's on them, but also patch some holes that are happening on the actual surface. This sandpaper is the one that I had on previously. I was a little worried because sometimes when you have finish like this, it comes onto your sandpaper, but this one actually looks like it's okay and it can go for longer. So this is gonna work without having to get a varnish remover. I just finished sanding the first door, but it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. It didn't go as quickly. So I'm gonna go get some varnish remover and apply that for the next doors because I'm not gonna sit here and sand for hours. And also that wood filler on and that stuff, I have my mask on while I'm applying it and it stinks. So make sure you are in an area that is well ventilated, which I'm in my garage with the garage door open and I have my mask on, but yeah, it stinks, so make sure you wear something for that. So I'm just using a card scraper, but you can use one of the other scrapers, like a painter's scraper tool, but I'm gonna use a card scraper because that's what I have on hand and I think it's gonna do a really good job at removing this finish. So here we go. This didn't work as well as I wanted it to, so I actually ended up, after this door, going back and just using the sander. The easiest way I've found to figure out these measurements for these pieces. So what I like to do is I take the width of the door and then I'm going to subtract the 5 inches on each side. So that's going to be 10 inches. So I'll just take my calculator. So for example, I have one right here that I'm going to do. So this door is 27.5 inches long. So I'll do 27.5 minus 10, and I could do that in my head, but of course I don't want to. So it's 17.5 inches for the top and the bottom. So that is what this one is. For the other part of the door, for the length of the door, the way that I'm going to do this is, again, we have 5 inches at the top, 5 inches at the bottom, and 6 inches in the middle. And you'll notice that there is a plate where your door handle is, and we're going to measure from this point up to the top and then subtract from there. So first we need to figure out what the length is of this for your door. My handle is a little different. I'm pretty sure the plate is probably the same. And so my plate actually equals 2.25 inches. So I'm going to subtract that from the 6 inches. So that gives me 3.75. Divide that by 2. So I'm going to have 1, and that's actually 7/8 inch. So that's going to be 1 7/8 inch to measure from here to the top of what I need. So I'm going to subtract 5 plus 1.5. So I'm going to actually subtract 6 7/8 inches from this, the top of the board and the bottom of the board, just to give me my measurement. But first I have to measure what's from here to this plate and here to this plate. And I don't have those, so I have to hurry and go measure them. Now we're gonna add this trim, and I don't know if I have enough room to even show you. So that is what it looks like on the end. That's the design that I went for, the edge. This board has an issue with it, which is kind of frustrating. I'm hoping it's the only one that has an issue, but we can cut this part and use the rest of it. So we're just gonna make it work. We're gonna work with it. We're gonna cut it at 45-degree angles and put it on the door. I was debating on wood glue or liquid nails, and I think I'm gonna go with liquid nails because I'm gonna put very few nails actually in the trim to the door. And so the liquid nails I feel like is gonna be a stronger hold. So we're gonna start there and work our way through. Now that all the pieces are cut, we're ready to assemble, and I'm using 1¼ inch nails for this build. And remember, I'm using 5 inches along the side and a 6-inch gap down the middle, so I'm marking each door side, and then I will put the trim in place using liquid nails and then nailing it in. And here's the video on putting this down for both sides of this door. After everything was nailed into place, I did use a scrap piece of wood just to clean off the excess liquid nails. But here is how I quickly did the other side. Now that the trim is on the door, I needed to fix some nail holes, but also after fixing the nail holes, I did use a spackling paste to fill in the nail holes. Afterwards, it was time to caulk all the seams and make sure everything was ready for paint. I then put the doors up in an accordion style to make sure that I could spray all the sides at one time. I have gone through my resources of primer, and I still need to do one more coat on those doors, so I'm off to the hardware store to grab some primer because I've used all my old. We decided to save some money and keep our hardware, but that required some painting, so I had to sand down the hardware and then spray paint it. And here are our doors installed back into place. And honestly, I think they look really good. They look like their original doors, and it saved us a lot of money by not replacing them.